Welcome to Theories of the Third Kind. My name is Aaron. The other host joining us today is Danielson.
Hello.
Now, before we start today's episode, we do have a couple of announcements to make.
If you would like to support the show, you can do so by joining our premium subscription service, Supercast. For just $6.66 a month, you can enjoy weekly premium audio episodes and access to our entire back catalog of over 270 plus episodes that are all ad-free.
Or if you're a big baller and you want to spend a little extra cash, then you can sign up to our premium video service. That's $9.99. And it not only gets you access to our premium audio episodes each week, but our premium video episodes each week. So you can sign up to that by going to theoriesofthethirdkind.com. And right in the middle of our website is a button that says Supercast. You can click on that. It'll take you over there. And it takes you less than 30 seconds to sign up if you want to.
Now, we know things are tough out there right now, so if you can't afford a premium membership, but you still want to help us out, you can do so by leaving us a written review on iTunes or Spotify.
That helps us out a lot.
However, don't feel pressure to leave us one. If you don't want to, then that's fine. We just want you guys, girls, aliens, reptilians, Bigfoot, Sasquatches, Chupacabras, ghosts, Illuminati members, underground lizard people, whoever or whatever you are, to enjoy the show. And also, remember, this episode is entirely human-made. No AI were used or harmed in the process other than for the base graphic template.
And that is the end of the announcements. Now, real quick, this is how many times have we recorded this episode? Completely once.
Once, but we've restarted at least 6 times.
Yes. That is because some of the equipment we have decides to just malfunction randomly.
Yeah, the first time it was actually the Black Magic, and now today it has been the Roadcaster.
Mm-hmm. So thank you to that great piece of equipment.
Yes, let's keep updating things to make things worse.
That's what they keep doing, rolling out updates. So they're like the iPhones, you get an update and it slows down your phone. We get an update on the Roadcaster 2 and it messes everything up.
Changes everything.
Yeah. All right. So today's episode is a Theories Thursday. And if you don't know how a Theories Thursday goes, it's where Dan and I have each selected our own topic. We have independently researched it, and we are now going to take turns presenting this topic to one another. And the most difficult part of a Theories Thursday is figuring out who goes first. And the last time we recorded this, I won the roll. Did you want to stay with it, or do you want to roll again?
Oh, that's up to you.
I don't mind going first.
All right. You can go first. I'll go first on premium.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So to start off my Theories Thursday topic today, I just want to say that I rarely watch the news because I truly believe that it is controlled by large corporations and the government. The mainstream media never tells you the truth about what is going on. And I know to some of you that this might sound like a crazy conspiracy theory rant. However, my topic today, which is Venezuela versus the United States, this topic is a perfect example of the mainstream media being controlled and not telling you the truth about what is really happening, which I do have that truth, and I do have the proof to back up all of the claims that I'm going to make today. Also, before we start today's episode, I got to do the disclaimer, okay? I know on this podcast, we don't talk about religion and we don't talk about politics. And my topic today might be considered political to some. And for that reason, I want to reiterate that I am not politically aligned with any political party. I'm not for the left. I'm not for the right. I am for the party of the people. I'm for Bigfoot 2028.
That's right.
What's his slogan?
Get your dick sucked.
That's exactly what it is. Also, I am for the truth. Wherever that truth may lead us in my research, that is what I am here to do, present the truth to you all. I just want to make that clear. So with that being said, I'm going to hop into my topic today. And like I said, my topic is over Venezuela versus the United States. And I am sure most of you have seen the headlines on your local news stations or across your social media feeds. The United States deploys warships off the coast of Venezuela to counter narcotics operations. So basically what's going on is that the United States claim that Venezuela is trafficking a lot of drugs into the U.S. And to stop this, the United States not only has placed sanctions on Venezuela, but they also placed a bounty on their president's head for $50 million. And they also sent thousands of troops, warships, and a nuclear submarine to sit right off the coast of Venezuela, kind of like flexing their military muscle. And I know to most people, this story sounds like another chapter in the endless war on drugs. But like so many headlines in history, what we are being told by the media is not the truth. What if I told you that behind this story lies something much bigger and much stranger? That this isn't really about stopping the flow of cocaine or fentanyl or any drug that the United States is claiming is invading our communities. It's really about a tiny country you've never heard of before and how the mainstream media is hiding what is really going on.
Damn it, Aaron, tell me the truth. What is it? What is the mainstream media hiding from us?
Well, before I get into that true story, we first need to go over the official story that the United States news outlets are telling the entire world. Okay. And then I'll get into the true story of what's going on. All right. So, the official story painted by the mainstream media is that on August 7th, 2025, the United States Attorney General announced that Venezuela's president is one of the most powerful drug traffickers in the world and a threat to the national security of the United States. Due to this, the United States is placing a $50 million reward for information leading to his arrest. Now, it's important to note that prior to this announcement, some U.S. politicians have stated that the cartels in South America, primarily in Venezuela, are responsible for the flow of fentanyl and other drugs into American communities. Due to this, they, as in these U.S. politicians, believe that the U.S. military should be used to stop the cartel and their flow of drugs from Venezuela. That's what they stated. And why do I mention this? Well, shortly after the Attorney General made that announcement about Venezuela's president being a powerful drug trafficker and placing a bounty on his head, journalists then began to question if the U.S. was going to use its military to stop the flow of drugs because of the U.S. officials previously stating, hey, use the U.S. military to stop the flow of drugs. So that's when the journalists were like, wait, are you going to do that now? Well, multiple U.S. officials quickly shot that down and stated that's not going to happen. We're not going to use the military to stop the flow of drugs. However, only a few hours later, more than 4,000 military personnel and multiple warships were deployed just off the coast of Venezuela. Over the next few days, more warships were sent to that coast of Venezuela. And in total, the United States deployed 7 to 8 warships, including a nuclear submarine and over 4,500 military personnel, just sitting there right off the coast of Venezuela, flexing their military muscle. Shortly after that, the White House stated that the military action is part of a counter-narcotics operation and that the president of Venezuela isn't just a dictator, he is also a drug kingpin who is responsible for smuggling drugs into the U.S., which is ruining American communities. And that is the official story that is being painted not only by government officials, but also every single news media outlet. And to the average U.S. citizen, this story fits. Drugs threaten U.S. cities. We send warships to show a sign of military strength and to stop the flow of drugs. However, there's a problem with that. You don't use guided missile destroyers and nuclear subs to chase speedboats carrying cocaine and fentanyl. That's like using a sledgehammer to smash a mosquito. It doesn't make sense. So if this story isn't really about drugs, then what's really going on? Why are we sending warships off the coast of Venezuela? So for us to understand what's really going on, we have to shift our focus to the east of Venezuela. There, nestled on the Atlantic coast, is a small, overlooked country, Guyana. And I have a map right here that I'll post up for everyone to take a look at who's watching us on YouTube. And if you aren't watching us on YouTube, you can go to our website, theoriesofthethirdkind.com, click on today's episode, and all of our images that I referenced today and Dan references will be up there for you to take a look at. All right, so there it is, Guyana, right next to Venezuela. And Guyana is pretty much a peaceful English-speaking country that has a population of around 850,000 people. And we have to jump back real quick and go over a little history lesson for us to understand what's really going on. So before Guyana was one big independent country, it was actually 3 colonies that were ruled by the Dutch. You had Demerara, Berbice, and Essequibo, okay? So it was 3 colonies that were ruled by the Dutch. Now, in 1814, the Anglo-Dutch Treaty was signed, and it transferred the control of those 3 Dutch colonies over to Great Britain. Then you fast forward to 1831. Those 3 colonies end up merging together and become British Guiana. So it's no longer 3 colonies, it's 1 now. So we fast forward to the late 1800s. And around this time, Venezuela claimed that they owned the land of Essequibo, one of those 3 colonies that ended up merging together. Now, we do have an image that I'll put up right here. It shows Venezuela colored in orange. Next to that is Essequibo. And then you have Guyana, which Guyana makes up Essequibo and that white spot that's pointed to Guyana. Okay. So that is how big Essequibo was when it was one of the 3 colonies. It's a pretty big area, almost the entire Guyana, pretty much like 75% of it. So Venezuela made that claim that they owned that large area, and a lot of drama occurred. And eventually in 1899, an international tribunal stepped in and told Venezuela, hey, Essequibo, well, that is a part of British Guiana. Venezuela rejected the ruling and called it fraudulent and stated that, hey, we own that land, not the British Guiana. However, nothing changed. So we fast forward to 1966. British Guiana gains its independence from the UK, and it becomes the modern day nation of Guyana. So that is the history of Guyana. And I want you to remember that because it plays a vital role in my entire Theories Thursday today. All right, so now we're going to shift gears. We're going to talk about something that happened in 2015. And just hang with me here because I promise I'm going to tie everything in together.
All right. So before you go ahead, though, so it was originally called Guyana, but as soon as they got their independence, it became Guyana.
It was the British Guiana. And then once they gained independence in 1966, it changed to Guyana.
Okay. So that's the difference in the names.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So back in 2015, the American oil giant ExxonMobil, they were drilling off the coast of Guyana and on the land of Guyana, and they struck oil. Now, ExxonMobil didn't just find a little bit of oil off the coast and on the land of Guyana. They discovered over 11 billion barrels of recoverable oil. It was one of the largest discoveries of oil in decades. Overnight, Guyana went from this small, quiet country to an oil giant. So over the years, multiple different oil companies started saying, hey, we want a stake in it. We want a stake. We can drill oil for you, Guyana. We can. And they began investing money into equipment and bringing equipment over there and partnering with the country of Guyana to get this oil drilled out of the ground. Now, as of today, ExxonMobil has a 45% stake in it. The Hess Corporation has a 30% stake in it, which the Hess Corporation is about to be bought out by Chevron, which is another U.S. oil company. And then the remaining 25% stake is with CNOOC, which is a China state-owned oil company. So 75% of the stake is owned by large American oil companies. So in short, American oil companies have a large stake in Guyana's future. They are going to drill out millions of barrels of oil and make an ass load of money, a ton of money. Well, Something else worth mentioning is that Guyana's next door neighbor, Venezuela, they have the world's largest oil reserves. But Venezuela can't do anything with it. They can't sell their oil. That's because the US placed sanctions on them. Pretty much, if any country purchases oil from Venezuela, they'll have sanctions placed upon them. So, what the United States said was nobody can purchase oil from Venezuela. And if you do, we're going to place sanctions on your country. Due to this, Venezuela can't sell their oil. And I want you to imagine how Venezuela's president must feel. He is sitting there watching ExxonMobil right next door pump millions of gallons of oil just right out of the ground and making a ton of money. He must be pretty pissed off because there's nothing he can do with all of his oil. And this is where our history lesson comes into play. So you all remember how I mentioned that in 1899, the International Tribunal stated that the colony of Essequibo, it belonged to British Guiana, which became modern-day Guyana, and how Venezuela back then claimed that, hey, that ruling was messed up, and that area of land, that Essequibo, that belongs to us. But nothing ever happened? Well, all of that oil that was found here recently in Guyana, it was in that area of Essequibo. And Venezuela heard about it, and they stated, hey, that land used to be Essequibo. That's ours. That belongs to our country. So all of that oil, that belongs to us. And the president of Venezuela also stated that ExxonMobil is illegally trespassing by drilling for this oil. So those are the claims. Now let's take a step back and connect all of these dots. So the U.S. sends warships and other military personnel to the coast of Venezuela. The official explanation: to stop drugs from getting into the United States, and the president of Venezuela is a drug kingpin. But what's really happening is that the naval buildup happens just as Exxon and Hess, Chevron, are pouring billions of dollars into Guyana's oil projects, pumping out oil. Also, Venezuela is passing laws claiming that Essequibo is its own. They own that land, and they're threatening to seize that region. And the U.S. military heard about this and quietly positioned itself to send a message to Venezuela. Don't touch Guyana. Don't touch our oil. It's not about chasing drug boats. It's about protecting energy investments and deterring Venezuela from escalating its claim. The narcotics story, that's just a cover. And here's the thing, this is not new. The United States has used these noble-sounding missions as cover stories again and again throughout history. Here's some examples. In Somalia in the 1990s, we sent military personnel over there claiming that, hey, this is for famine relief, when in reality, it was to secure influence over a vital shipping lane near the Red Sea. In Libya in 2011, we sent soldiers over there claiming that it was humanitarian intervention, when in reality, it was a regime change in Africa's top oil producer. What was his name? Gaddafi. Gaddafi, yeah. Over and over, the pattern repeats. Government officials declare noble missions, news media outlets push that narrative, but beneath the surface lies resources, pipelines, and strategic interests. So when you hear the headlines about the U.S. sending warships to Venezuela's coast, remember this. The official story that they are telling is that it is about narcotics. But it isn't about drugs. It isn't about cartels. The deeper story is oil and how the United States government protects the interests of large corporations, such as ExxonMobil, Hess, and Chevron. The United States may say it's fighting drug traffickers, but history suggests something else entirely. What they are really doing is that they are protecting the black gold of Guyana and making sure that Venezuela stays in its place. And that is my Theories Thursday topic of what's truly going on. There you go. Now you can sit down over dinner and tell your granny whenever she brings up, oh, hey, You hear about Venezuela and the United States are going to war because Venezuela sends drugs? And did you see that little speedboat that we blew up? That was a friggin' fishing boat. That wasn't a drug boat. We blew up a fishing boat.
That honestly didn't even look like a actual speedboat, unless it had like a really good motor on it. But it looked like a
A
fishing
fishing
boat,
boat.
kind of.
Yeah. That was a war crime. But anyway, you could tell your granny, no, it's about oil and what's going on and the United States protecting large corporations and their oil interests.
Honestly, I always thought the drugs and stuff were coming from Mexico, the Mexican cartel.
We looked it up last time and we learned that majority of the drugs are from Mexico.
Unless Mexico is like the middleman or like the end game for Venezuela to get the drugs up to Mexico, and then from Mexico it goes into the United States.
Primarily Colombia to Mexico, Mexico through the border is what Venezuela is supposedly doing, is bringing up to the East Coast with their boats.
Well, obviously it didn't this last time.
That was fishermen. They were bringing in fish, those poor souls.
Yeah, and honestly, like you read up on it, they don't really know if they were truly cartel members or not, but they're just naming them that.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I guess if they were flagged down and all that to stop and everything, and they just kept going, I mean,
I'd be scared to stop.
I would be too.
Anyway, so there you go. If you or a loved one have any more information regarding oil or what's really going on in Venezuela, please comment down below. We would love to hear from you. Or send us an email, Aaron, AARON, at Theories of the Third Kind, or you can send it to Dan, DAN, at Theories of the Third Kind. All right, so that's my Theories Thursday topic.
I like it because honestly, I had no clue what was really going on, other than the fact that I know warships were sent down fighting against the drugs on war, supposedly, and then they blew up the ship or the little boat.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I really knew because I don't really watch the news that much.
I think we just sent over like 4 to 6 F-35s, fighter jets. So, I don't know. Things may be getting serious if Venezuela pushes that claim of Essequibo as theirs. They're passing laws to take over that area of land, which is where all the oil is at. So,
I mean, I don't think that's right to do that either, though. To just like pass laws, be like, "Oh, this is our land now."
mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds like a certain.
I think they just
government,
got. I think they got pissed off at the sanctions placed on them. It was like,
but-
well,
oh yeah,
we're going back to 1899, and this area of land is ours. We're going to take it. And then the United States government can't be like, oh, we're fighting this because of these large corporations we're protecting. No, they got to have a noble sounding mission of protecting American lives from drugs, these nasty drugs.
yeah, because it's like they're not allowed to sell oil, but we can go there and then take it and sell it.
Yeah.
Sounds fucked up.
All right. So that's my Theories Thursday topic. And I'm going to pass the microphone over to you for you to present your Theories Thursday topic, which is over Edgar Allan Poe.
That is right.
Ooh, I'm excited.
So for my Theories Thursday, I chose Edgar Allan Poe because I wanted to share with you all my love for poetry. Just a little bit.
He's going to read Edgar Allan Poe for the next hour.
That's right. The Raven. And Aaron's going to be the Raven and he's going to reenact part of it.
Caw-caw.
No, but I'm not going to read any poetry, so you don't have to worry. And if y'all want me to, then that's going to cost extra.
Yeah, and he'll show his feet on camera too while he's doing it.
I'll paint it like a raven. But I just wanted to talk about one of my favorite poets, Edgar Allan Poe. And as a disclaimer, I have to say, I like his poetry, but I might not like him as a person.
Yeah.
Just a disclaimer on that, because of the things that I did find out about him. So when I first learned about poetry, though, it was in elementary school. Of course, they teach it, but I was fascinated with it when we went on this field trip to this place called Swift Creek Mill, to where they did like a reading of Edgar Allan Poe's like poetry, and they did like little reenactments of it. And I thought that was fucking awesome, just to say it. And then, of course, that's kind of like started off my whole love for poetry. I can't write it for shit, but I like reading it. And of course, then the next thing in middle school, we had a poet come to, actually, no, it was still elementary school. A poet came and they actually had a book of combined famous poems and stuff. And Edgar Allan Poe was in like the majority of it. I had to have it. Of course, I begged my parents, like, hey, can you get the book? Financially, it was a little rough, But enough begging, they gave in. They got me the book. And I was happy. And I still have that somewhere at the house. And it was like signed by the poet that came and read it, even though the poem's like not really theirs. So I don't get the point of them signing it.
Yeah, I see some Philip K. Dick books that other people signed, and I'm like, why the hell is this author signing his book?
Yeah, I never understood that. It's like, this ain't really your work. You just combined the poems in there, and then you signed it.
Yeah, they take his short stories and they combine it into one book, and then they sign it. And I'm like, I don't want your signature. I want Philip K. Dick's.
Yeah, I don't understand that. But granted, it had his poetry in it. I still got it. And then later on in after high school, pretty much 2013, 2014, the years after high school. Makes you feel old to say it, but I remember my sister called me up and saying that my niece had a field trip she was going on, and my sister was supposed to chaperone, but she couldn't go, had a doctor's appointment. And of course, I'm like, I don't want to chaperone a bunch of middle school kids. Not my thing. I'll hang out with my niece, babysit them, take them to doctor's appointments, but watching a bunch of random kids, no. But then she told me, like, hey, they're going to the old Richmond Theater in Richmond, Virginia to watch a play. So I'm like, okay, I'm a little interested. I do like that stuff. And then all she had to say, they're reading something like Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven or some shit. I'm like, oh, I'm going. You got me.
I'll be the chaperone.
I'll be the chaperone. Don't care about the kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, okay, that's all you had to say. I will definitely go for that. And of course, we went to that, and it was amazing. It was cool. But yeah, that is pretty much my little history with Edgar Allan Poe and the love for poetry with him. But have you ever like read any of his poems? Do you have any favorites of his?
Mm-hmm. A Dream Within a Dream.
That is a good one. Mine, of course, is like everybody's is like The Raven, but I like Sleeper and Romance. Those are some of my other favorites. But like I said, as a person, he wasn't that great of a person, but his death, though, is what intrigued me. And this is why I actually wanted to cover him, because it's actually pretty mysterious in its own way.
Okay.
And there's actually a ton of theories going over like how he died or like why he died. So I figured, why not start in telling you about Edgar Allan Poe's life? Because I mean, he didn't have that great of a life either. Because you think how famous his poetry is now, it was not that way when he was like writing it. No one really gave a shit.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured I'd start from the very beginning, so you get a feel of the shit that he went through, his life and all that. And then we get into his death and all the theories around it.
All right.
So here we go. So Edgar Poe was born on January 19th, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts. Poe would be the second child of the actress Elizabeth Arnold Poe and David Poe Jr., an actor from Baltimore. He had an elder brother, William Henry Leonard Poe, and a younger sister, Rosalie Poe. So within a year of him being born, his father actually abandoned the family in 1810, and then after that, a year later, his mother would die from tuberculosis. And that is when pretty much Poe was taken into the home of John Allen, a successful Scottish merchant in Richmond, Virginia, who dealt in a variety of goods, including tobacco, cloth, wheat, tombstones, and unfortunately, slaves. Now, the Allens served as the foster family to Poe, but they liked Poe so much and they pretty much loved him. They actually gave their last name to Poe to use as his middle name, so he wouldn't forget, his
Who he was raised by. Don't forget us.
So his name would now become Edgar Allan Poe, even though he was never formally adopted. Then they would send Poe to Scotland and England between 1815 to 1820 for classical education, which when he finished there, he actually continued in Richmond. And then he would attend the University of Virginia for 11 months in Charlottesville, Virginia in 1826. But at the time, his custodian was so enraged by his gambling losses that he refused to allow him to continue. So I'm guessing Poe was a gambler. And I guess the money he had, like an allowance, he was like using it all to gamble. And the custodian was just like, nope, get out. Done with you. So after that, Poe would return to Richmond to where he would find his sweetheart at the time, Sarah Elmira Royster, and they would end up getting engaged. Then he would move to Boston, where in 1827 he published a pamphlet of youthful Byronic poems, which included Tamerlane and some other poems. Unfortunately, though, he was unable to support himself, and on May 27, 1827, Poe decided to enlist in the United States Army as a private. But he did not do it under his real name.
How old was he when he enlisted?
He was only 18,
Oh, okay.
and he signed up as Edgar A. Perry, claiming that he was 22 years old.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Then his first station was at Fort Independence in Boston Harbor, earning just $5 a month. That same year, Poe managed to release his very first book, a slim 40-page collection of poems titled Tamerlane and Other Poems, published simply under the byline of By a Bostonian. And only 50 copies were printed, and the world scarcely even noticed that book.
Wonder how much that book goes for now.
It has to be a lot now.
What's the name of it?
Tamerlane and Other Poems. So Tamerlane.
A worn and stained first edition of Edgar Allan Poe's first book, Tamerlane and Other Poems, was sold at an auction by Christie's, which is an auction place, for $662,500, a new record for a work of American literature. That was in 2009. No more than 50 copies were printed in 1827, and only 12 are thought to still exist.
So yeah, 50 copies of that book. And at the time people bought it, no one really cared for it.
Only 12 now exist.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have that book and you don't mind giving it to me.
We'll put it up on display.
Yeah.
We have one of 3 books.
Oh, yeah, the true...
it's actually a pamphlet, kind of. Are there devils today?
Those were actually written by the nuns, right?
Yeah, and this is a collection of stories about, possessions. And Notre Dame University Library has the other copy, and then some random bookstore in like Massachusetts or the Northeast has the other copy, and then we have the third. Only 3 of these in the entire world.
Aaron had to do a lot of things to get that.
I called around a lot of people, and I forgot I changed the name on my number that popped up as Elon Musk when I called people. So the lady was like, "Am I being scammed by Elon Musk?" I'm like, "No, I want to purchase it, lady."
But why is it Elon Musk? You don't sound like him.
All right, so where were we at? So he sold his first book. He's in the Army.
Yep. So later that year, his regiment was transferred to Fort Moultrie in Charleston, South Carolina. They traveled there aboard the brig Waltham on November 8, 1827. Poe would work hard and was promoted to artificer, a skilled tradesman responsible for preparing artillery shells. And with this came double the pay. And over 2 years, he rose quickly through the ranks, eventually achieving the title Sergeant Major for Artillery, the highest rank possible for a non-commissioned officer. He hit the highest rank for a non-commissioned officer. He had double the pay, so I guess he was making $10 a month now.
Woo!
Ooh, so much. But Poe wanted out. His enlistment was for 5 years, but he wanted to end it early. So I guess he served about 3 years, I think it was, and he wanted out. So he ended up confessing his real identity and his situation to his lieutenant, who was Lieutenant Howard, his commanding officer.
So yeah, he signed up under a different name and different age. So he's thinking, oh, I can get out of, the rest of my service time by saying, hey, I lied. And then they'll give me maybe an honorable discharge, or I don't even know if that was available back then. Then probably just kicked him out.
But yeah, that's exactly what he thought. But Lieutenant Howard would only discharge Poe on one condition. And I don't understand why, but he said he must reconcile with his foster father, John Allen. So I'm guessing he must have told the lieutenant that he had a falling out with his foster father, and he joined the Army early and changed his name. And he's just like, you know what? You make things right with your father, then I'll discharge you.
Well,
Which,
not a bad deal.
Not a bad deal. So that required a letter to John Allen, his foster father. But Allen, Mr. John Allen, was never one to bend, so he actually ignored Poe's pleas for months. In fact, he didn't even inform Poe that his foster mother, Frances Allen, had actually grown gravely ill. She ended up dying on February 28, 1829, which Poe did find that out, and he visited the house the day after her burial. And perhaps softened by grief, John Allen finally agreed to help Poe leave the Army so that he could pursue an appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point.
So he was leaving the military to go to military school.
Yep, because West Point is where you would go to be an officer in the Army.
Oh, and he reached the highest rank he could so far.
And this time he would actually sign up using his real name and age.
So it was legit.
Yeah, so I wonder if that means he couldn't use his previous record because he lied about who he was. So it would be like he's starting fresh in the military school.
Yeah, but he already knows what goes on, so he's got
Yeah.
kind of an edge.
He does have an edge. So on April 15th, 1829, Poe secured his discharge after finding a substitute to finish out his term, which I guess he had to find someone probably in like his regiment to take his ranking spot or whatever.
Okay.
Now, before entering West Point, he did return to Baltimore to live with his widowed aunt, Maria Clem, and her daughter, Virginia Eliza Clem, Poe's cousin and future wife, and his brother Henry, and his ailing grandmother, Elizabeth Cairns Poe. So this would be all blood relatives, not a family of John Allen.
Okay.
So not his adopted father. So around this time, he published his second book, Al-Aref. I don't know how to say that one, but it's Tamerlane and minor poems in Baltimore. So pretty much some of the older poems that he did, combined it in his newer book. And by July 1st, 1830, Poe had enrolled at West Point as a cadet. But that fall, in October, John Allen remarried, taking Louisa Patterson as his wife. And bitter quarrels erupted between Allen and Poe, especially over the illegitimate children Allen fathered through his affairs. So at last, John Allen disowned Poe entirely. So I guess Edgar Allan Poe did not like the fact that when he remarried, come to find out, he probably remarried this woman that he already had kids with that no one knew about.
Who's he already had kids with?
John Allen, his foster father.
Foster father already banged his wife?
Already banged somebody else on the side, and after his wife died, he remarried, and then they found out hey, you have Poe found out that he had I guess brothers.
Bastards.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess they didn't get along with that, and they ended up fighting, and Poe got disowned.
Okay. Family drama. Man.
Family drama, man. And with Poe pretty much being disowned, he had no financial or emotional support left, so Poe decided to force his own dismissal from West Point. He deliberately skipped formations, classes, and even church, and on February 8th, 1831, he was court-martialed for gross neglect of duty and disobedience. So he ended up pleading not guilty tactically, knowing that a guilty verdict would not bring the dismissal he desired.
Okay.
So pleading not guilty brought him the result of being dismissed from the Army or the school. So he ended up leaving West Point in February 1831 and went straight to New York, where he published a third collection titled simply Poems. And this time the book was funded by his fellow cadets who admired his verse enough to each contribute 75 cents, raising $170. They may have expected witty, satirical poems about their officers, but instead received serious, ambitious work.
They were like, ha, gay.
Yeah, they were just like, oh, he's going to make fun of the officers and stuff. But no, it was actually serious work. And he had, the book was printed by Elam Bliss in New York, and it was marked second edition and dedicated to the Corps of Cadets. Now, the volume included earlier works like Tamerlane and that one I can't really pronounce, the Al-Araf, but also 6 new poems among them, like early versions of To Helen and The City and the Sea, and some others. But by March 1831, Poe had moved back to Baltimore with his aunt, his younger brother, and young Virginia. But tragedy struck again. His older brother Henry, already weakened by alcoholism and poor health, died on August 1st, 1831. Now, truly determined to make his way as a writer, Poe pushed forward. It was a difficult path, and he became the first well-known American who tried to live solely by his pen, but of course, at the time, the odds were against him. And of course, American publishers preferred pirated copies of British books over paying for original American writing. Guess it was cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the financial panic of 1837 happened, which further destabilized the industry, And even when Poe found opportunities in magazines, payments were often delayed or withheld altogether.
Oh, yeah, we know all about that.
Yeah, we know all about that.
Go 4 or 5 months.
Yep.
We living off ramen over here.
I have so many ramen seasoning packs left. But throughout his career, he was forced to beg, sometimes, in a most humiliating way, for financial help, which, when things get tough, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. But after his early focus on poetry, Poe turned to prose. He published a handful of stories in Philadelphia and even attempted a play called Polition. Then in October 1833, his story, MS Found in a Bottle, won a prize from the Baltimore Saturday Visitor. This victory brought him the attention of John P. Kennedy, a wealthy Baltimorean who became both patron and friend. Kennedy helped Poe publish more stories and introduced him to Thomas W. White, editor of the Southern Literary Messenger in Richmond. And then by August 1835, Poe was assistant editor, but his tenure was short-lived and he was dismissed for drunkenness within weeks. Taken after his brother.
In the bottle.
And then that same year, 1835, though Poe secretly married his cousin Virginia Clem on September 22nd, 1835, he was 26 years old.
Wait, so hold on. So he's secret. What happened to his other wife?
He was engaged but never married her.
Oh, okay. So he never married her. So then he went and he was like, you know what? I'm going to marry my first cousin, who is how old?
You want to guess? Said she was young.
15.
Mm,
How old?
13.
Jesus Christ. How old was he?
26.
Jeez.
Twice her age.
That's like some Karl Malone shit.
It is like some Karl Malone shit.
Horrible.
So yeah, she was only 13, though on the marriage license, she was listed as 21. Which I don't see any 13-year-old looking like a 21-year-old. I'm sorry. You got to have some really bad eyes for that. But soon after, Poe was reinstated at the Messenger, where he worked at the literary place.
Was that where he got fired for drinking?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Under the condition of good behavior. And he brought Virginia and her mother with him to Richmond. And he thrived at the Messenger, claiming to have raised its circulation from 700 to 3,500. He published stories, poems, critiques, and biting reviews. And on May 16th, 1836, he and Virginia held a second public wedding ceremony in Richmond. So they decided to do a public one when she was 14, but I guess on paper it'd be 22. Very weird. Then his novel, The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, was published in 1838, drawing wide reviews. And then the next year, he became assistant editor of the Burton's Gentleman's Magazine, contributing numerous works and sharpening his reputation as a fierce literary critic. Then, of course, in 1839, his Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque appeared in 2 volumes, though the profits were slim and reviews mixed. And then Poe soon left Burton's and moved to Graham's Magazine. And by June 1840, he was dreaming of his own magazine, which he called the Pen, later renamed the Stylus. He even purchased advertising space in the Saturday Evening Post to announce his prospectus, his magazine. But the dream never came to fruition in his lifetime, so he was never able to get his own magazine up and going. And then Poe also sought government work. With connections to President Tyler's son, he hoped for a post at the Philadelphia Custom House, but once again, drink and erratic behavior undermined him. Then in January 1842, tragedy struck closer to home. Virginia, while singing at the piano, ruptured a blood vessel in her throat, which were the first signs of tuberculosis.
How old was she?
See, this is 1842. She was 14 and 36, so 6 years later, so she was 20.
Must have been singing some Lady Gaga or something.
Some K-pop demon hunter. Though she partially recovered, Poe was devastated and his drinking pretty much worsened under the strain of her illness. And he ended up leaving the Graham's Magazine, tried for other posts, and eventually moved back to New York, where he worked briefly for the Evening Mirror before taking over the Broadway Journal. There he stirred controversy, even accusing Henry Wadsworth Longfellow of plagiarism, a charge Longfellow pretty much ignored. Then came the breakthrough. On January 29, 1845, The Raven appeared in the Evening Mirror. It actually became a sensation, making Poe's name famous overnight. Yet he only received $9 for it,
Damn.
which I think we did the math last time and it came out to like 300 something dollars.
Yeah. Wasn't much.
Now, it's not like he gets royalties or anything. It was just a straight up payout of like 300 something dollars in today's money.
Yeah.
Then in 1846, the Broadway Journal ended up collapsing, and Poe ended up moving back, retreating with Virginia to a small cottage in Fordham in the Bronx, in New York. There on January 30th, 1847, Virginia died. Her death shattered Poe, and biographers often say this is his recurring theme of death of a beautiful woman. The poem stemmed from this loss, which is just one more death that pretty much caused him grief. So pretty much that's why his poems are like always sad. But yet, in the years to follow, Poe's instability deepened. He pursued the poet Sarah Helen Whitman in Providence, even becoming engaged, but the relationship fell apart, likely due to his drinking. And though Whitman's mother also intervened, she did not want him marrying her daughter because he was pretty much a drunk and crazy, I guess. And later, Poe ended up returning to Richmond, and that's when he rekindled a romance with his first love, the first fiancée, Sarah Elmira Royster. So that's the one that he was originally going to marry, then I guess went to the army, broke it off with her.
Man, he keeps jumping from girl to girl.
I mean, the one he couldn't really jump from. She died.
Jesus Christ. He wasn't supposed to be with her to begin with. That was his cousin.
Yeah.
And she was underage. What a freak.
Exactly.
Gross.
Yeah, but after rekindling his relationship with Sarah Elmira Royster in Richmond, Edgar Allan Poe seemed, for a brief moment, to have found some stability again. Then, of course, Elmira had been his first sweetheart in youth, and now both older and widowed, she and Poe spoke of marriage. It looked as though, after years of grief and wandering, Poe might finally find peace, but fate had other plans. In September 1849, Poe left Richmond, intending to travel to Philadelphia and then onward to New York. What happened next remains one of literature's greatest mysteries. On October 3rd, 1849, Poe was discovered in Baltimore, outside a tavern known as Ryan's Fourth Ward Pulls. He was delirious, dressed in clothes that were not his own, and unable to explain what had happened. The man who found him, Joseph W. Walker, recognized Poe right away and had him taken to Washington College Hospital. And for 4 days, Poe drifted in and out of consciousness. Witnesses reported him calling out for someone named Reynolds, though no one has ever confirmed who the hell that was.
Ryan Reynolds. That piece of shit. Time traveled.
Killed Edgar Allan Poe.
I knew I fucking hated him.
Son of a bitch. After that, Poe was pretty much never coherent enough to explain why he was in Baltimore, why he was dressed so strangely, or what had brought him to such condition. And then on October 7th, 1849, at the age of 40, Edgar Allan Poe passed away. The official cause of death was listed simply as congestion of the brain, though theories have come up, which we're about to hop into those here soon. Poe was buried in Baltimore, originally in an unmarked grave, and years later, a monument was raised to honor him, and his remains were moved to a more prominent resting place in the Westminster Hall burying grounds. Though his life was marked by poverty, tragedy, and mystery, his pen carved out an enduring legacy. He gave the world haunting poetry like The Raven, Annabel Lee, and To Helen, chilling tales like The Telltale Heart, The Fall of the House of Usher,
The John,
and The Black Cat, and even laid the groundwork for modern detective fiction with the murders in the Rue Morgue. So Edgar Allan Poe lived only 40 short years, but his life burned with brilliance and sorrow. And perhaps fittingly, his death remains as eerie and enigmatic as the tales he left behind.
Damn, 40 years old when he died.
He went through a lot of shit in 40 years.
Yeah, he did. But the official cause that they stated was congestion of the brain.
Yeah.
But he was found on the streets of Baltimore, like confused and just walking around in different clothes.
Clothes that did not belong to him. Men's clothes.
Okay.
That did not belong to him.
And then he was taken to a hospital where he sat there for 4 days, confused, and then died.
Pretty much in and out of consciousness. Pretty much coherent, like incoherent, couldn't speak, and other than the words Reynolds coming out of his mouth.
Ryan Reynolds.
So that is the life and death of Edgar Allan Poe. Now, I do have a couple strange facts and findings.
All right.
and then we'll hop into theories. So, the first strange fact I have is called Griswold's memoir. So, the day Edgar Allan Poe was buried, a long obituary appeared in the New York Tribune signed Ludwig. It was soon published throughout the country, and the piece began, "Edgar Allan Poe is dead. He died in Baltimore the day before yesterday. This announcement will startle many, but few will be grieved by it." Signed Ludwig. And they end up finding out who Ludwig was, and he was a Rufus Wilmot Griswold, an editor, critic, and anthologist who had a born grudge against Poe since 1842. No one really knew why, but he did not like Edgar Allan Poe. And Griswold somehow became Poe's literary executor and attempted to destroy his enemy's reputation after his death. Rufus Griswold wrote a biographical article of Poe called Memoir of the Author, which he included in an 1850 volume of the collected works. Griswold depicted Poe as a depraved, drunk, drug-addled madman and included Poe's letters as evidence. Many of his claims were either lies or distorted half-truths. For example, it is now known that Poe was not a drug addict. He was just an alcoholic. And Griswold's book was denounced by those who knew Poe, really well, but it became a popular, accepted one. And this occurred in part because it was only the full biography available for Poe, and it was widely reprinted, and in part because readers were thrilled at the thought of reading works by an evil man.
Mm.
And they did find out that the letters that Poe wrote to Griswold, they were all pretty much plagiarized. So he pretty much made up a lot of shit just to make Poe look like a
Griswold,
drug addict.
the hater of Poe.
Yeah. So that was that strange fact. He had pretty much a rival that couldn't do nothing to him while he was alive, so he ended up writing evil shit about him when he was dead. But the next strange fact is actually about his grave. And I actually read this one in a magazine that I bought about haunted places. And I'm one of those people that if I see a magazine that talks about haunted places, UFOs, there was one at HEB that I wanted to buy. They call it Secret Societies.
Yeah, whenever I go on a flight, I'll go to those little what are they called? Little bookstores, or kind of where you can get snacks and shit. And I usually go to the magazine section, and they'll have a paranormal or conspiracy type magazine, and I'll just buy that and read that on the plane ride.
That's what I do. And honestly, I hate how much they cost.
Yeah, they're like 17, 18, 19.99. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Is this thing gonna jack me off too?
It's almost as much as a book.
Yeah. Not that I pay to get jerked off or anything, okay? I don't. I've never have, never will. I can do that myself. Anyway.
But all right, yeah. So I read this in a magazine, and it read that they originally buried him in an unmarked grave in Westminster Burial Grounds in the very backside of the lot in 1849, which only had a plot number. So it wasn't until the 1860s that a Baltimore schoolteacher named Sarah Sigourney Rice led a fundraising campaign to give Poe a proper memorial. This campaign encouraged children and ordinary citizens to donate whatever they could spare, which was often just pennies. And that this movement actually gave the name Pennies for Poe, because that's what people were pretty much donating, was just pennies. And it would take years of collecting of small donations. And by 1875, they finally gathered enough money to give him a proper burial. So they ended up moving his remains to a more prominent location, which was actually near the front beside his wife, Virginia, and her mother, Maria. And they ended up building him a large white marble monument near the entrance, and were pretty much in remembrance for him.
So why did they bury him separately?
They just buried him back there. You know why?
I have a theory behind all this, and that just adds to my theory.
I got two more strange facts, and I want to hear that.
Okay.
Unless you want to say it now.
No. I'll wait. I'll wait till the theory, because it's a theory regarding his death.
All right. So the next strange fact I'm finding I have is called the Poe toaster. And I know you probably think the same exact thing I'm thinking.
Toaster?
That he had a toaster made after him.
Mm-hmm.
That is not right. I felt dumb afterwards when I actually read it. It actually means a toaster, someone doing a toast.
Oh, a toast. Okay, I'm not going to toast him.
So it began sometime in the early 20th century. Some say as early as the 1930s. Others believed it started in 1949, 100 years after Poe's death. So on the night of January 19th, Poe's birthday, a dark figure would appear in the Westminster Burial Grounds in Baltimore. He was always dressed the same way, in black, with a wide-brimmed hat and a white scarf pulled up against his neck for the cold. The stranger would slip quietly through the gates, past the iron fences and weathered stones, and make his way to Poe's grave. There, in the silence of the early morning, he would perform his ritual. He would place 3 red roses on the monument, perhaps for Poe, his beloved wife Virginia, and his mother-in-law Maria Clem, since they were all buried together now. And beside them, he set down a half bottle of cognac. No one knew why. Maybe it was a toast to the poet, maybe a nod to Poe's struggles with drinking, but no one really knew.
This was 100 years after he passed away.
Yes. And then, just as silently as he came, he would vanish into the night. And year after year, for decades, the Poe toaster returned and did the same ritual. Some watched from a distance, but no one dared to interfere. His identity was part of the magic, that no one knew who it was, but they respected it. And by the 1990s, the toaster began leaving cryptic notes along with the offerings. In one, he hinted that his tradition would not last forever, and indeed, on Poe's birthday in 2009, the ritual was performed for the last time. After that, the Poe toaster was never seen again. So he did it from 1949, say around 1949 to 2009. So for 50 years.
His grandchild. His grandson.
You think so?
Well, he never had any children. Never had any children. But there was a rumor, Frances Osgood or something like that.
Frances Allen was his mother-in-law.
There was a Frances Sargent Osgood, who was another poet. And it was rumored that the daughter she had was actually Edgar Allan Poe's daughter. And maybe that daughter, Edgar Allan Poe's daughter, had children of her own, and one of the children was like a grandson of Edgar Allan Poe that would line up with the time, and then he would just go to his grandfather, or, great-grandfather's.
There was a poet that he did pursue. That was a female, but I don't think her name was Frances. He pursued the poet Sarah Helen Whitman in Providence, even becoming engaged, but the relationship fell apart, likely due to his drinking.
Yeah, there was another poet that a lot of people say he had a legitimate daughter with, called Frances Sargent Osgood.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So he was out there.
He was out there slinging that ding-dong and reading poetry.
So yeah, that was that strange fact with the toaster, which could be his, I guess, illegitimate grandchild.
Maybe.
Okay. All right. So for our last strange fact and finding is actually about one of Edgar Allan Poe's desk that he used, and it's considered like a haunted legend now. It is the story of the Raven desk. So in the winter of 1845, in his modest home in New York City, Edgar Allan Poe sat at a simple wooden desk. It was there that he penned the poem that would change his life forever, The Raven. And at that desk by candlelight, he wrote the haunting verses that would make him famous overnight. Quoth the Raven, nevermore. But fame did not bring fortune, and soon the desk itself became an object of dark curiosity. So after Poe's death, the desk passed into other hands, and that is when these stories began. Its owner spoke of strange misfortunes, illnesses, sudden poverty, strokes of bad luck that seemed to fall like shadows. Some claimed it cursed their households, others whispered that the desk carried with it the very spirit of despair that had surrounded Poe in his entire life. It became known simply as the Cursed Raven Desk. And to this day, the desk survives, preserved as a relic of American literary history. Visitors may look upon it, but the old stories linger, that those who keep it too long or who sit at it too often may invite misfortune into their lives. The desk is only wood and nails, nothing fancy, but yet when one remembers the man who leaned over it, pouring his grief, his genius, and his torment into the lines of immortal poetry, it is easy to believe that some part of Poe remains there still. A restless spirit in the grain of the wood whispering, nevermore.
I'd sit in the desk.
I'd sit at it.
I'd jerk off in the desk.
I'd write down the pen saying, I did it here. But supposedly, I think it's in New York somewhere at like a museum, I
Okay.
think. So you could go and see it.
I highly doubt you can sit in it.
Yeah, they probably won't let you sit at it, considering how old it is. And it's a simple desk, so it's not like the president's desk or something that's like built sturdy from, is it the president's desk built like from a ship?
I have no idea.
I can't remember. But yeah,
Thank you for those strange facts and findings.
you're welcome.
All right, now take us into theories.
Theories. So the first one is one of the most famous ones, is that it's an alcohol-related death
Okay, so these theories are in regards to his death.
to his death.
Okay, so a lot of these theories are like, hey, his death was not congestion of the brain. It's X, Y, and Z instead.
Correct.
Okay.
Which, I mean, that is one of the theories, like the congestion of the brain, like a tumor or something. But the first one is about alcohol. Some believe that Poe's long struggle with alcohol led to his death. He was known to binge drink, and periods of sobriety were often followed by relapses. Witnesses claimed he had been drinking before being found in Baltimore. Others argue it wasn't drunkenness, but delirium tremens, which were violent withdrawal from alcohol, and that caused his collapse. However, hospital attendants noted that he didn't smell strongly of liquor, which makes this theory questionable. Which, I mean, he could have been on a relapse, so it
Yep.
could have been that. But so at the time, though, he was not intoxicated. So that's the first theory. The second theory is one that I've never heard of. It is called cooping.
I didn't hear about this until you mentioned it the first time we recorded this, and I was like, cooping? What the hell is cooping? Or is it cooping? Or
It's cooping.
Yeah.
So it's Cooping. Now, cooping was a form of 19th century voter fraud. Gangs would abduct victims, drug or beat them, disguise them in different clothes, and force them to vote multiple times. Poe was found delirious outside a polling place on Election Day, wearing someone else's shabby clothes, a detail that matches the method of cooping perfectly. This theory is one of the most widely accepted because of the timing and the odd state in which Poe was found. So let's say that he did die of congestion of the brain. That's bleeding of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
These people, they abducted him, beat the shit out of him, changed his clothes, made him vote a couple times, and pretty much he was so beaten badly, he started bleeding in his brain, and when they dropped him off, he was walking around in clothes that weren't his, and pretty much that's why he looked delirious and stuff, and he couldn't talk, he was incoherent. He was going in and out of consciousness. So it's pretty much he was a victim of cooping.
That one's a good theory.
It is a very good theory because
It fits because during that time in Baltimore, they were voting.
yeah, and I mean, in fact, I knew that some people like they did this stuff in the back, but I didn't know there was a word for it.
I didn't
And
know there was entire gangs running around forcing people to
Yeah.
go vote again.
So that's the second theory. The third theory kind of had me laughing a little bit. This one is called rabies. In the 1990s, medical researchers revisited Poe's case and suggested his symptoms: delirium, agitation, hallucinations, and trouble drinking water. Which I didn't hear about the trouble drinking water, but all of these matched rabies. And this was published in a medical journal as a serious hypothesis. However, there's no evidence he was ever bitten by an animal, so while it fits his symptoms, the source of the rabies remains mysterious. So maybe someone injected him with rabies,
Maybe.
like on Blue Mountain State. Instead of doing steroids, you inject a little bit of rabies to get that edge.
I've never seen Blue Mountain State. Was that a football show?
It has the guy that plays Reacher on Prime.
Oh, okay. Did Donnie used to watch that?
I used to watch the shit out
He
of
used
it.
to.
Thad Castle. Funny ass show. But that was the third theory. The fourth theory is pretty much the congestion one, kind of. It's called brain tumor or neurological illness. When Poe remains were moved in the 1870s, observers claimed his skull contained a hard mass that rattled inside. Some believe this was evidence of a calcified brain tumor, and if true, it could explain the seizures, hallucinations, and sudden collapse he experienced. Though not confirmed scientifically, it's a theory with some physical evidence. So when they moved his body and they picked up where his head was, it rattled. Like there was something inside of his skull, which is very
That's disgusting.
disturbing and disgusting.
He sucked his brain out.
Well, the brain just like rotted away, but the hard calcified mass just stayed in there.
CTE.
Or it could have been something else.
Mm.
I don't know what, but then of course there's the theory murder or foul play. Some argue Poe may have been attacked, poisoned, or otherwise murdered. He had enemies, a reputation for controversy, and often lived on the margins of society. However, there is little concrete evidence to prove this because it remains speculative, fueled more by the mystery of his final days than by facts. Which, I mean, this could kind of play into the whole cooping thing. Get beaten to go vote.
Hmm.
And then you did have what's his name, Griswold, who was his like rival.
Number one hater.
Yeah, and of course, not a day after he was buried, he already had a whole obituary written out. Oh, people will notice his death, but not many would grieve over him. Kind of fucked up.
Yeah, what a hater.
Wonder if anybody wrote him a like a hard critical obituary when he passed. Liar and an asshole. Poe hater.
Oh man.
But yeah, you had that one. Then, of course, there's heart disease or natural causes. I mean, that one's kind of self explanatory. And then the last theory would be political revenge. This one's more on the conspiracy side, is that Poe's death was tied to his politics. He had tried to secure government positions and made enemies in the process. Some believe he may have been targeted or silenced. However, this theory lacks solid evidence and survives more as a gothic possibility befitting Poe's own dark stories. Which, I mean, during the time there was voting, maybe he was gaining the ear of people. Be like, oh shit, Poe makes a point with this political side. And then someone ended up pretty much taking him out, which I don't know.
What I'm stuck on is Reynolds. Why the hell did he say Reynolds?
No one has no idea who or why he was yelling Reynolds. And I mean, I can't think of anything. I don't think in any of his poems he says anything about Reynolds.
Yeah, that's weird. All right. So if you had to pick between all of these theories, which one are you going with?
I would pick Cooping.
You believe that he was part of like a political, or he was a victim of a political gang that made him vote, beat the shit out of him, put different clothes on him, made him vote again, and then just threw him in the alleyway. And he was like, oh, brain damage. Oh, and then they took him to the hospital and he died days later from the brain damage.
Yeah. That and they probably not drugged him, but probably gave him, well, no, they didn't give him alcohol. They knew he was an alcoholic.
Withdrawals.
They beat the shit out of him and kept him away from drinking. Probably teasing him like, hey, you go vote. We'll give you alcohol and shit.
He had massive concussion, and then mix that with the withdrawals of alcoholism in the hospital, which would explain his erratic behavior during his death.
Yeah.
I could see that as a plausible theory.
Looking up the whole Reynolds thing, supposedly someone saying James A. Harrison, who published a letter written to Maria Clem, stated that Reynolds may have been the author of the address on the subject of a surveying and exploring expedition to the Pacific Ocean and South Seas, which may have given Poe ideas for his novel, The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket.
Had a dick so big she couldn't even suck it.
Boom. This address presented in the Southern Literary Messenger, January 1837, by Jeremiah N. Reynolds, was a proposal for exploring the Pacific and South Seas for the benefit of whale fishing expansion. So pretty much saying that he was reading something and he came across something that inspired him for like a novel or a poem or something, and the author was Jeremiah Reynolds. So I guess,
I don't know about that.
yeah, I'd honestly go with cooping and probably withdrawals from alcohol. They concussed him.
So originally I went with that when we first recorded this. I went with cooping. But I have a different theory I'm going to go with.
Okay.
And it's the one what'd you say, you laughed at? Rabies?
Rabies. Yeah.
I 1000% believe he died of rabies.
Really?
I do believe it. Okay. So during his final days, his attending physician was Dr. John Moran, and he noted that his symptoms closely matched the course of a rabies infection. He noted he had delirium and hallucinations, which he experienced periods of alternating between like lucidity and like intense agitation, including vivid visual hallucinations. It was noted by the physician that his pulse fluctuated dramatically, and he alternated between periods of profuse sweating and then a calm demeanor. And then it was noted that he had difficulty drinking water, and which is a symptom of rabies caused by painful spasms in the throat muscles. And he had combative behavior, which at one point he had to be restrained. The 4-day progression from these severe symptoms to death aligns with the typical course of rabies. It was a common disease back then, and a lot of people point to that Dr. John Moran and all of his notes and said everything he's saying is rabies. Now, how did he get rabies? Well, there's a lot of records stating that Poe loved animals, all different types of animals, and would always keep different type of animals in his home. So he could have contracted it. And another thing to add to this is that the congestion of the brain might have been a cover for the rabies to keep people from freaking out over his death of rabies and it being spread. Rabies is everywhere. You can get rabies everywhere. Look at Edgar Allan Poe. He got it. And then another thing to point that it was rabies was that back in the 1800s and mid 1800s, all the way up to the 1900s, they didn't really have much knowledge about how this was spread and all of that about rabies. So what did they do to the bodies? They buried them away from everyone else.
Oh, so that's why he was buried at the back of the.
Yep, that's what they did to rabies victims because the superstition surrounding the disease, they didn't know how the really the
But it's weird that they didn't mark his grave and everything. It's like they just left it as a just a plot number.
yeah,
Like, why wouldn't they mark it? It's like someone hiding him.
stop people from digging them up, thinking that maybe somebody dug them up, then they would spread rabies to them, and then a way to stop the spread of it. And he was just a victim.
Okay.
That's what I'm going with. He had rabies.
All right. So the doctor did say he had trouble drinking water.
Mm-hmm. Hydrophobia.
That is a big thing with rabies. And back there, they didn't have the rabies shots.
No. So I'm going with that, but my backup theory would be the cooping mixed with withdrawal of alcoholism.
That is a big thing if the doctor was saying the symptoms were like that and signed off on it.
Yeah. Even in 1996, LA Times ran an article that stated that, hey, a medical journal just published what you were saying, facts and findings that supported the theory or hypothesis that Edgar Allan Poe's death was caused by rabies.
Well, what do you guys think? Rabies, cooping, withdrawals from alcohol?
Comment down below. We would love to know your opinion on what do you think that Edgar Allan Poe died of.
Yeah.
Was he a sexual deviant? We know for a fact he was a pedophile and a pervert.
Yeah.
There's that. Anyway, so do you have anything else you would like to add to your Theories Thursday today?
Nope, that is it. I'm pretty sure I bored enough people with it.
No, it wasn't boring. I enjoyed it.
Nevermore.
Well, thank you for your Theories Thursday topic. I enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Glad you did. I hope you all enjoyed it.
And that is the end of our episode today. If for some reason you cannot get enough of us, we are doing another Theories Thursday episode, which is a premium episode where I cover hidden agendas. Basically, I go over multiple different corporations throughout history and how they say one thing, but in reality, they are doing another thing, like ExxonMobil and covering up their destruction of Earth, and a lot of other companies like Amazon, Uber, Coca-Cola, all of them. I dive into all that. And then Dan covers
Project 100,000 during the time of the Vietnam War. Pretty much a hidden agenda. They're recruiting people to do one thing, but it's actually for something else.
So those are the Theories Thursday topics that we cover on our premium episode today. And if you want, you can sign up to that just by going to theoriesofthethirdkind.com, clicking the Supercast button in the middle and signing up. Or if you're listening on Spotify, you can, I think, just click on Spotify and sign up somehow. Yeah, and you get access to it and you can listen to it right there. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, we'll have a comment that's pinned up at the top where you can click over and sign up that way. But no pressure, only if you want to.
Yeah, no pressure.
So with that being said, I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for your support and love. Without you, we could not do this.
That's right. Much love.
So with that being said, Dan, you want to roll us out?
Sure will. It's okay to be out of this world with your thoughts.
Because you are not alone.